Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Evie Fleming. Evie Fleming is a reflexologist, and you can find out more about Evie Fleming and her wonderful work at her website, tree-evolution.com. Welcome, Evie Fleming.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
So we're going to be talking in this show about what is reflexology. A lot of people have heard about reflexology, but may not know what it is. What exactly is reflexology?
Well, to go to very basic definition, which is always a good grounding place to start, right? It is the use of manual techniques, whether it could be thumb rolling or using your fingers, or to work the feet and sometimes the hands and the face, but mainly the feet. And you're trying to work the neural pathways in a way to initiate like a healing response in the body. So that way we bring the body into balance. It's kind of like if the body's off balance a little bit, the reflexology is going in to hit those locations to make everything start to mesh together and talk to one another. And it can be very relaxing, of course, which also helps to de-stress the body. And we know that if we bring our stress level down, then the healing can happen.
That's a great explanation. And my understanding from 27 years teaching yoga and 29 years now in natural healing is that all the acupuncture meridians either begin or end in the hands and feet. So when we're working the reflex points, as we do in reflexology, we're actually activating the acupuncture system, correct?
That is very true. Yes, because I think you have about, I believe the count is 14 meridians, and 12 of them the starting points can start in the feet and the hands. So yes, it is it's like, I always say it's like the information highway. It's the start of that highway. In a way.
Yeah. So all the major organ meridians start or end in the hands and the feet. And the ones that Evie Fleming mentioned that are not in the hands and feet are central meridian, your primary yin meridian, and governing meridian, which is the primary yang meridian. Central meridian goes up the front of your body from your pubic bone to below your lip. And governing meridian goes from your tailbone up the back to the top of your lip. So for our audience, they may go, well, what's the difference between reflexology and massage?
Well, that is a very good question. And I often get asked that. But when I looked, one thing I always start with like definitions, because then it separates it. Like I just did describe how reflexology is like a manual technique where you're using it on your reflex points and your neural pathways, where massage is more of someone rubbing and kneading, and they're working your muscular tissue. Now, it's not saying that massage won't give you a deep sense of de-stress and release in the body, but in reflexology, I feel like it's more intentional. Like you came with an intention on what you wanted to work on your body, and then it's more directed. Like, okay, we're going to work the stomach, and we're trying to, again, like we say, initiate a response that moves throughout the whole body. And I have had many people come to see me and say, I felt like you gave me a full body massage, and I know you only just touched my feet, because it has the power to like radiate up into the body. So it's different because it's more directed, and it's a different method, and we're working a different system, so to speak.
Great explanation. And again, once you understand that your acupuncture system either begins or ends in your hands or feet, by working the acupuncture points in your hands or feet, you're again balancing the energy in the body. And I'm going to share this for our audience because many people don't understand the flow of energy in the body. So first of all, what is energy? It's chi, it's prana. You know when you have it and you know when you don't have it. So when you're tired, you know that. It's like, wow, I feel really kind of tired. So your life energy. And you can stimulate and balance the flow of energy in your body by working on the acupuncture points. And so just real quick, because this has to do with reflexology. So there's a vertical electrical current in the body called your hara line. The hara line feeds your chakras, and the chakras are major energy vortexes in the body, right? There's 7 major chakras and a lot of minor chakras. The chakras in turn feed energy into the acupuncture meridians, and then the acupuncture meridians feed energy into the organs. So when Evie Fleming does reflexology on your hands or feet and works on the acupuncture meridians, she's actually affecting the energy and the chi in your organs. And then the organs feed energy into the muscles. So when you understand that flow of energy, let's say I've got problem, I always have problems with specific muscle. Well, it may be the muscle, maybe that muscle is injured, but it may be a block in the flow of energy somewhere along that pathway. So Evie Fleming, you are a highly trained, highly experienced reflexologist. Will you give for our audience, and I know we're listening to this primarily, sort of an overview of the map of the major reflex points in our feet? Like, where's the points for your brain and your lungs and all those good things?
Yes. Okay. I love that. I love it. When I start the session, of course, I'm always trying to get you to mentally let go of your thoughts. So we start with the big toe. The big toe is the area of the brain and where you can work the pituitary gland, the amygdala. You're trying to like calm that system down. And then you, of course, can fan across the toes and get the head and also get the sinuses in the toes. That's why sometimes if you get a treatment, the person will kind of pluck your fingers or pluck your toes. They're just like opening up your sinuses in that way. And then the next part, if you moved down the inner side of your foot, like if you were to take your hand from your big toe and run it down the side of your foot all the way down to your heel, this is working your nervous system reflex in a way. You're working your spinal reflex. And so it's a way, I do that in a way to kind of then get the body to relax. And then I'll do a little twist to check the person's flexibility, like how are they moving? The balls of your feet, I always tease ladies and say, you can recognize that the balls of your feet is your lungs, because after you take off a pair of shoes, what are the first thing you do? When you take a nice deep breath, right? If you've been walking in high heel shoes on the balls of your feet. So the balls of the feet are where the lungs, respiration, and the heart area lies. Then when you get more in the arch, you're getting into your digestive system, right? The stomach, your small intestine, large intestine. So I always tell clients, if they rub or take their hand into the ball of their foot and just kind of knead in that area, you're like gently encouraging your digestive system to work. And then when we get around the heels and more the ankles, this is in the hip area. You're working your hips and stuff. So if someone has had something going on with their ankle, that's usually one of the first things I ask, like, how are your hips doing? How are your hips doing? So that's just, those are the major parts of the body.
So very cool. Now, I know Evie Fleming, but as a medical intuitive healer, people come to me to understand their body and understand what's going on and how can I make myself better. As a reflexologist, when you work someone's feet, are you also reading the organs, and can you tell about a person's health by their feet?
I can. it's more of like offering suggestions on what I can see and feel. Like for instance, if I was to go around the area of the person's digestive system, right? So if it feels sluggish to me in my movement of them, or they have some sensitivity, like they almost want to pull their foot away from me, then I come back and ask them about like what's going on with your digestion, how are you eating, what are you feeding yourself good foods in that way. Now, often more than not, sometimes people, when you're working their feet and you say, oh, you notice something in their digestive area, and they say, oh, there's nothing going on with my digestion, I'm good, or whatever. Then, but you can tell that they're talking and say, well, is there something that you're taking in that you're trying to digest in your life, that you're trying to move through your system? What's going on with work this week? Then we start to like take it beyond the body, because that's the thing that you said before about the peeling off of the layer. Okay, I pulled off that layer. It's not that. What's the next layer? And then a lot of times people will say, well, at work this week, well, while you're doing that, make sure you eat well. Make sure you're doing well. You're feeding your body good food while you're going through all of that.
So great information. Now, in your experience as a reflexologist, how common is foot pain?
Very common. Usually that's the first thing that leads someone to me, because as soon as I say, I work on the feet, the person will say, oh my God, my foot hurts. And they'll start telling me where it hurts. They'll start taking their shoe off and showing me, like everything. And so usually that's the first thing that happens. And then we usually we walk through everything. Like, what type of shoes are you wearing? When did you notice the pain? Is it sharp? When you move the foot for me and show me where it happens, right? And then I don't discount the physical part, that they may have actually twisted an ankle, but then I want to know to actually help them identify where the pain is, to say, if you start to get that as a signal too, it may be an indication that the body's putting its hand up to give more care to that area as well. So we still link them all together, but I work techniques to maybe, if they're having swelling, to work the lymphatic system to help with the swelling, talk to them about how to support it as it's healing, right? Because that's all about nurturing yourself. I'm always bringing them back, I think, ultimately to self-care and awareness is the goal.
A great observation. And as you mentioned, foot pain is incredibly common of people on all ages. And I know now at age 63, a lot of times I look at beautiful high heels and I'm like, eh. Because when you wear high heels, you're changing the pressure on your feet, and you're putting all the pressure on your toes and on the balls of the feet. It's like you're walking around on tiptoes and you're throwing the posture out on your whole body. I know when I studied posture, one of the things that we talked about was women's shoes, and how women's shoes typically throw your whole posture out. So great information. And for that, let's take a short break to hear a message from one of our sponsors. So hang in there, we'll be right back. So Evie Fleming, reflexologist of tree-evolution.com. When you are massaging people's feet, what are the areas in people's feet that you find need the most attention?
Their neck, because I think too, we've gone so much to, and not to say anything against it, but we've gone so much to being on our computers and then also being more at a desk that you lean the head over and it puts a lot of pressure on that cervical spine. I tell people to hold up that heavy little melon that we have, right? And so I find that I have to work and do a little bit of a traction on the toe a little bit to try to loosen the neck. And then next it will radiate into their shoulders. A lot of people, I didn't mention it in the beginning, but usually that's around the fifth toe to work the shoulders because we're hunching. Sometimes if we're stressing, we're hunching. It's this whole hunched over movement that we have. So usually neck and shoulders, and then their hips, probably too, because they're sitting a lot as well. And then just sitting properly. So I often have to go back and say, okay, let's look at how you're sitting. Are your feet flat on the floor? Can you tell where you are? Even when you're driving, are your knees and hip in good alignment? So if it usually is neck, shoulders, and hips. And I always tell people too that, and then they start, the last thing is the feet. And I said, if your feet start to hurt and you don't take care of your feet, you'll start to compensate and you'll start to roll the feet. Then now my knees hurt, then my hips hurt, then next it's just going to keep traveling up the body. So if we start with the feet and start getting a good foundation and then work all those pieces of the body, then that's how we have the balance.
And where in the body, where in your feet are the reflex points? You mentioned the reflex points for your neck and shoulders and hips. So for our audience, we explain where are the reflex points for our neck, shoulders, and hips that you work when you're doing reflexology.
Okay, for the neck, it's like if you were, I'll just take my thumb, and this is like my big toe. I would work the sides of it here, and then maybe even run my finger around it and then pull up on it, on the foot, like hold the base of the foot and then pull up on the toe and wiggle it around to create some traction, right? And for the shoulders, if this was my foot, I would be over, like this is a toe, I'd be right underneath that
That little
fifth finger. Yes, the fifth finger on your foot. You go just below it and kind of work in an upward motion. And then maybe even on the outside of your foot, you just kind of get a little squeeze and release action on that fifth toe. And for the hips, it's around your ankles. A good way to do it is to just take that little knob, that malleolus place on the ankle, and just kind of work your fingers around it and rub around it, almost take it in the ball of your hand and work that to work it. And then of course, take the foot and make some circular motions, right? Keep the movement going. Yeah. In that
So
way.
very cool. So the outside of the big toe, all around there for the neck, and then the outside of the little toe for the shoulders, and then around the ankle area for the hips.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and be sure to get the inside of the big toe too, because you want to feel like you take the whole, even though it's a toe, you still want to work both sides.
Great information. Now, as a medical intuitive healer, one of the things that I do is I help people understand the messages they're receiving from their body, because our body's always communicating with us. It could be like, stop wearing those high heels. I know about a while ago, I just had to, it was so painful. I had to collect up all my high heels and give them to someone who was 30 years younger than me. And there was this beautiful shoes, but I'm like, I know better now. But so in my work as a medical intuitive healer, I talk to people about foot pain and foot exhaustion. So when your left foot is always pained and exhausted, that's spiritual exhaustion. That means at the soul level, you're tired. The right foot, when the right foot is always pained and exhausted, that's physical exhaustion. So maybe you're working too hard or exercising too hard. So Evie Fleming, reflexologist, from your years of experience, what are the messages that we receive from our body uh, from these different little aches and pains in our feet?
Well, there are a lot because along with the reflexology courses that I've taken, I've also done a lot of like foot reading and toe reading to get all of the nuances. So when you said that, that is something I look at, like if the person's foot looks different from the left to the right. And for me, I usually tell them, just like you said, spiritual yin is more inner on that left side. The right side is more yang, which is outer, the outer environment, what may be going on. So if they localize all their pain on one side of their body, then I start to ask them questions, more questions, just to get them to think about it in a way, to start saying, okay, it's interesting. Your right shoulder doesn't hurt, but your left shoulder does, or your right shoulder hurts and your left one doesn't. I would say your right shoulder hurts a lot. And then I could say, well, are you carrying a lot of stuff at home? Or does it feel like you're being weighed down by something? Especially if I sense the nuance of it, and then we're talking about, oh no, I didn't injure it in any way. They can't think of that. They don't lift weights. They don't do anything. They didn't injure it. So the same would be true for the hips. Like I could work someone's ankle and they say, oh, my ankle's been really sore. Did you twist it? No, I didn't twist it. And it just feels really achy. And I do all this. And then I may say, oh, well, did your family come to visit this week? Because for me, it's the area of the family. And then they'll be like, how do you know my family came to visit? Like, was there something going on with your family? Like, I get them to look at the body is giving you a message and is saying that it had an experience. And we know that the body will hold that experience until you work it and it disperses. So me calling their attention to how they may still be holding on to that energy and how it may be manifesting in their feet and in their body in that way. So I do try to I feel like it's a little bit of looking at beyond just the physical. Like I want to look at the physical, but you are a human being having an experience, right? So I also want to know how it may be emotionally getting you and how it may be gripping you in that way as well.
Great information. Now, Evie Fleming, reflexologist, what are the benefits of reflexology?
The benefits are, one, you're going to de-stress. That is benefit one, because we know that stress and inflammation are like number one in what causes dis-ease a little bit in the body. Because I always tell my client, if you're stressed out, you're always in a fight or flight mode. You're just like, every minute you're like, what's happening? And the system can't slow down. It's not giving any blood to anything but the legs, maybe the brain. It thinks we need to run at any moment, and it's doing that. But if I can get you out of that and get you to relax and get you more in your parasympathetic system, where you're just more calm and relaxed, now your immune system can work. Now your digestive system can work. I often, sometimes when I'm doing reflexology with someone, I listen, because the first time I started to hear their stomach growl, I know we made a shift, right? Because they relaxed enough for the digestive system to work. And so the benefits then from that is first the relaxation. Then if there's some inflammation or something going on in the body, we're now signaling the body to try to move that energy, move that fluid out of the body to help. Maybe I've had some people who have had big detox movements. They've talked about afterwards how they just, oh my God, I can tell I detoxed after I went. The body really released. And so, and lastly, I think, the clients are building more awareness about their bodies and learning their own nuances, because now that I've called attention to, oh, your feet seem really dry. You jumped a little bit when I hit your kidney point. Now daily, they're like, I need to drink my water, or they're mindful of that. Like it's something that travels beyond the session and gets them awareness about their self-care. So beyond the physical and the great aspects of it, then I love that they take something home with them.
Yes, and I really appreciated that you talked about the parasympathetic nervous system. I see that this is a true fundamental issue with all health issues in our culture. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what you said so beautifully and so clearly. But for our audience, you have a nervous system, and there's two sides, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is connected to at least 20 other neurons. You are programmed to survive, not to relax. You're programmed to run away from the dinosaurs if necessary. In the parasympathetic nervous system, I believe the ratio is only 1 in 5 neurons. So most of us have to make an effort to relax. Now, so many of my clients are stuck in the sympathetic nervous system. So even though they want to relax, they're so hardwired to be stressed that they're truly actually unable to. These are the people, they can't meditate. I had somebody recently say, I don't like going to yoga class because I'm uncomfortable when my mind is quiet, right? Because when they're quiet, all their emotions come up, all the issues that they've been suppressing, they come up to be felt, and so on. Healing happens when you relax. Healing happens when you get into the parasympathetic nervous system. The immune system activates when you're in the parasympathetic nervous system. And for all my clients with digestive problems, which is a lot of people, I'm always saying to them, digestion is a parasympathetic process. You must relax to digest your food. So everybody's got Crohn's disease and colitis and irritable bowel syndrome and all these, multiple digestive issues. At the root of it is their physical body is not relaxing. So having wonderful treatments like reflexology, like Evie Fleming's talking about, it's retraining the nervous system and giving your nervous system an experience of, oh, this is actually what it feels like to be relaxed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Evie Fleming, how long has reflexology been around?
Oh my gosh. It was, they have, I guess you call it Egyptian pictographs of people where they look like they're messing with their hands and feet. And so they're like, man, it's probably back thousands and thousands of years. But it started to formulate more probably around the 1930s or so, where there's a woman, and there are a couple of men as well, Fitzgerald and then Raleigh, and then also Eunice Ingham, that they got together and they start to formulate more methodology around it. And it's because they did a lot of study and research of their clients. Eunice Ingham was more like a therapist, and she was watching the reactions that people would have in their body when she touched spots on their feet. And so then they began to develop these theories that that we use today. And she is Eunice Ingham is responsible for a lot of the map that we see now of the foot that we currently use in reflexology.
No, you did a beautiful explanation for our audience. So the major points on the feet. Will you also explain the major points on our hands?
Oh, okay. So it mirrors in the same way. So I know we have a listening audience. I make sure I remember. Okay. So again, the thumb is the head, right? If you're traveling down the outside of the thumb, if you go down the edge of the thumb and maybe circle around and the ridge of the wrist, you're working your spinal column in that way. Of course, again, the fingertips, like I tell people, again, those are the sinuses, the thumb is the brain. Again, right here under that pad, under the bridge of where the 4 digits are right here, this too, again, is the lung area of the body. And then when you get in the center, again, you're working the digestive system. One thing that happen when I go, just a little sidebar thing, when I go to the chiropractor, a lot of times, sometimes I have in the past have had reflux a little bit, right? And to settle my stomach, but there's a spot, just if you take your hand, you open it, and you're right here, that little fatty like muscle part of the thumb, and you go just to the side of it a little bit, right here in this crease in between these two fingers. If you massage right in there, you'll get your stomach meridian, right? And your stomach reflex in that way. And you can calm the system down as well. And then around the wrist is where we get into the heart, right? The heart meridian here. And I'll tell people to just, you can just ring the wrist a little bit, working that meridian. So, and then all you get the hands together to just kind of get some flexion in there, right? Interlace our fingers, push the hands away and back just to move them around a bit.
Great explanation. And for our audience, I made a video on YouTube on acupressure and self-massage for arthritis, because so many of us, as we age, one of the things that affects that arthritis affects is your hands. And you never think you have a manual job until you can't do your knitting, or you can't open a jar of pickles, or you can't open a doorknob because your hands hurt so much. So self-massage on your hands and working the reflex points on your hands is an incredible self-care mechanism that reduces pain and increases the flexibility of your hands. So take a break with us, listen to a message from our commercial sponsor, and we will be right back with more wisdom from reflexologist Evie Fleming. So Evie Fleming, reflexologist. Reflexology is a combination of theories. Can you explain for our audience some of these various theories about reflexology that forms the basis of this healing art?
Well, there are several theories. One, first one that comes to mind is they have a zone theory where they divide the feet into different zones. And so if you had a map of the foot, you would run lines down the foot in
Vertical.
I know, I was thinking that in my head, right? A vertical manner. And so it's like it cuts off at the big toe, second toe, third toe, you're running. And so when you're working the system, you're looking at the different zones, like if something's going on in the head, like is it also going on probably if I follow that down on my foot, depending on which foot I'm on, it may lead to the intestines as well. Like you're looking at what may be in the zone. And then the zones can go vertical, and then they have some that also go horizontal in this way. And so you're breaking the foot up, you're doing it in a way to kind of pinpoint what's happening, and you think about above and below, that each way, one side what may affect the other. Then there's also the meridians, where they break the body up into the meridian therapy. And then like for instance, the bladder, the start of the bladder meridian is at the baby toe. So and it runs along the side of the foot. So sometimes when people are leaning out a lot, then I will ask them, how is your water? How is your bladder? How is your kidney? Because they're putting a lot of undue pressure on that meridian as well. So then there the meridian therapy around it. And then they talk about all of the, there's another form of where they integrate a lot of the chakra systems into it as well. And then you're like the base of the foot is the sacral So then if I have someone who has a lot of cracking on their heels and in that area, along with talking to them about the moisture and stuff, I may encourage them to do things that are more foundational, that give them more groundedness, because that's the part of the body that has its hand up the most, right? And then I may pay attention to, as I move up, which part of the spine or that area may correspond to the chakra system. And then we'll take all of those into the organs. And then you talk about the Meridian Clock. Like if someone says to me, I can't sleep, I may ask them what time do they wake up? And then I correspond it to the organ. And then I pay attention if that was what was active in the system, or if that's the one we need to give a little love and attention to help them to relax and sleep. Because sometimes if someone is waking up a lot, I think it's close to like between 3 and 5. We talk about liver, gallbladder, like this is your body clock. And so like
Actually, 3 to 5 a.m. is actually long meridian time.
Oh, is it long? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 to 3 a.m. is liver time.
Okay. Okay. I always mix them up. I have to look at the clock.
There's a lot of meridians in the body. Yeah. The 3 to 5 a.m. is lung. 5 to 7 a.m. is large intestine time, right?
Right. Because it's crazy, because it's like those last few hours of where the detoxing happens. And if you miss that swing, you do feel bad throughout the day, because the body didn't get to nourish those systems that eliminate and relieve the toxins in the body. So then we talk about that, like how can we get some sleep and different things. So that's why I say it's a whole approach. You are looking physically at the feet, but you're trying to take in the whole system, because the whole system is working together. So we want to talk to all of it if we can.
Yes, great information. And and for our audience, between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., that's gallbladder time. 1 to 3 a.m. is liver. Then you go into the lung, 3 to 5, then large intestine. And so, as Evie Fleming wisely observed, if you're always having a trouble at a specific time of day, then you can look on the Meridian Clock and find out, let's say I'm, always feeling exhausted between 3 and 5 p.m. Well, that's bladder time. and a lot of times it's also when the adrenals make a major shift. So I have to ask for our audience, will you explain for our audience, where are the adrenal points? Your adrenal glands are your stress glands that make your cortisol and adrenaline. So where on the feet are our adrenal reflex points?
Okay. If you take your foot, so I'm going to try to describe it to you if someone's listening so they can hear. Okay, you take your foot and you're at the bottom of the feet, and you go below the big toe, and just past that little ball where that you feel the ball of the foot is, that little mound is, you're going to feel like the foot starts to groove in a little bit, And I always kind of like take and just kind of push the big toe back a little bit, and you'll see a little muscle kind of like protrude a little bit, and you want to go just on the side of that muscle. And if you press in, usually if the person has something going on with their adrenals, they'll jump, because you're pressing into the adrenal. It's in a way, it sits on top of the kidney. So you're trying to get, in that point later in the session, you do massage the kidney, but first you're trying to, and it's not a press hard. You just want to slowly press and press in. You're just trying to calm it, right? Giving it a little pressure and calming it in a way. But yeah, that's where it's located.
So I am not a trained reflexologist like yourself, but in my many years, my decades in natural healing, I've definitely worked with clients on their feet. And what I notice is that people who are just horribly chronically stressed, a lot of times those adrenal points it almost feel like a tough a hard P. It's like, wait a minute, there's this hard little P, because they've been so stressed for so long. Now, Evie Fleming, as you know, many people integrate the wonderful healing art of reflexology with aromatherapy. So if someone was going to try and work their own reflex points, what basic oils do you like to start with? And then how can people add essential oils for greater benefit?
Okay. I usually the basics that I start with, one first is always lavender. Most people love the smell of lavender. If they don't, we can choose we go through some other scents, but basic, most people, the lavender, it gives like a calming effect. I usually do a tiny little foot bath before, like put their feet in some nice warm water, and I will drop the lavender in the water so the steam of it can also start to permeate the room as well. So lavender is very relaxing, and I will apply that to their spinal reflex in the session to already encourage the spinal system to let go. If they're having a little bit of pain and inflammation, sometimes I'll add in either a peppermint or a lemongrass, right? To help relieve some of that as I work more of the lymphatic system, working their lower backs in those areas. We'll add in some peppermint. I do lemon sometimes if it's for the nails, the toenails, because it's good for, it has a very good antibacterial properties, I guess is the best way to describe that. So sometimes a good little bit of lemon across the toes, lemon oil, is great as well. And then I often ask, like, what do you feel like you need today? What did you come to work on today? What do you think the body is talking about today? And then I listen, and then I will grab the oils for that. But a good peppermint and lavender and lemongrass will definitely start to work the system and the inflammation. And then you can add in others if they have more aspects of it, like the bergamot for the mood, a little bit of frankincense if they really need to go down, yeah.
Great information. Now, Evie Fleming, we talked about the reflex points in the feet and also the reflex points, the major reflex points in the hands. What is the major difference between foot reflexology and hand reflexology?
They're the way that you're affecting the systems is the same. You're still working head, nervous system, lungs, digestive system, but it may be that if the whatever the client has come to you for, if it's up higher, it may work better if you do it on their hands to get more direct. Like, let's say if I'm working the foot and they're really having a lot of stuff going in the shoulder, maybe I need to come up to the hand to work the hand to further get into that reflex that's closer to that side of the body to work it as well. Because you're trying to stimulate from the bottom up, but then you can just keep coming up so the energy keeps flowing up in that direction. And then often I've done people's hands because they just don't want me to touch their feet. They're just like, I'm too ticklish, I won't be able to hold still, it's not going to work. And so working their hands is a good alternative. And also it's also great to show them techniques, because if you're sitting somewhere and you feel like, man, I'm really feeling stressed in my shoulders, you're not going to want to kick off your shoes and start rubbing your feet, right? But you may work your hands, right? You're like, oh, I remember where my shoulder was. And even in doing that, you're having your own little meditative moment in a way, because you're rubbing, you're breathing, you're working all the aspects of the finger, working down the fingers, squeezing, right? And so that too is a sense of release.
Great information. And are there reflex points all over our whole body? We talked about the hands and the feet being the origin and the beginning or end of the acupuncture meridians, but are there reflex points over the whole body?
Yes, it's just so fascinating that there's so many ways to get into the system. Of course, They're the feet. Then you can take the hands. Then you can also take the face. There are points on the face as well, that work the system. And there's a whole different technique for working the face. Like we talk about, like how around the temples. This is, I believe, gallbladder region. So sometimes I tell people, if you're having a headache and it's here, you may be detoxing in a way, or is the pain more in the back of the head? Did it radiate up the neck? Which part of you working? And so there are points on the face as well. And then recently I took a course to get ear reflexology certification, and I have started to add it into my practice. And I noticed that the clients feel like they got sandwiched in, because I work their feet and then I come up and work their ears. And then they're like, oh, I feel like it just went up and just dropped into the body, because we're working all of those meridians. And then with the ear reflexology, what I think is so beautiful about that is I can put little ear seeds on the points. So then you can take your reflexology home with you, which is so great, because then they can continue to work. And again, it's like I'm stimulating, I'm bringing my awareness to that part of my body, helping more with the release of any stress.
Yes. And what Evie Fleming is talking about with the ear seeds, I have them in my healing room as well. And let's say you're chronically having trouble with your kidneys or some other organ. Well, you find the reflex point on the ear, and an ear seed, it looks like a little clear Band-Aid with a little black pellet in it. And you take a ballpoint pen, because you got to be kind of specific, and put the ear seed on the point on the ear. And then you keep stimulating, when you're, as Evie says, when you're at home, then you can rub that point, and it benefits the organs by directing energy into the organ. So Evie Fleming, fabulous explanation on what is reflexology. Any final thoughts for our audience?
I just, my thought is that if you've never tried reflexology, for sure, give it a chance to leave the door open for a different modality that may help you to explore wellness in a different way. It's non-invasive in that way. And I hope that I've given enough information to get everybody very curious about it. I think it more over where they are, it's more prominent. So here in the US, I think we're all just learning about it. So, but I hope that this opens the door.
Absolutely. And many people may not want to go to see an acupuncturist because they may be afraid of needles. But who wouldn't like their foot reflexology points taken care of?
I know.
It's a great way to balance your energy in a very gentle, comforting, relaxing way. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been the gifted reflexologist, Evie Fleming of tree-evolution.com. And remember, you can balance your energy by working your reflex points in your hands and feet and experience natural healing. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.